What if a simple TikTok video you thought was innocent turned into a gateway for something far more sinister? When Lucy discovers her grandmother's newfound social media fame, she unknowingly opens a door to terror. This is a story of fear, connection, and the horrifying secrets that can lie behind the most innocent of smiles. Stay tuned until the end to see if you can survive Granny's TikTok terror. Lucy had always cherished her afternoons spent with her grandmother, a vibrant woman in her late 70s. Granny had a unique ability to infuse even the simplest moments with warmth and magic. Whether they were baking cookies or tending to the flowers in her garden, Lucy always felt a special bond with her grandmother that transcended generations. However, everything changed one rainy afternoon when Lucy stumbled upon something peculiar while scrolling through TikTok. Her grandmother had become a social media sensation, and her latest video was racking up thousands of views. Curious, Lucy tapped on the video and was greeted with a familiar sight: Granny sitting in her cozy living room, a wide smile on her face as she waved enthusiastically at the camera. At first, Lucy chuckled at the sight of her grandmother trying to keep up with the younger generation. But as she scrolled through the comments, an unsettling feeling began to creep in. The likes were soaring, and the comments ranged from enthusiastic to downright alarming. One comment read, "What's that behind her?" while another warned, "I can feel something watching her," confused and concerned. Lucy replayed the video, squinting at the screen. In the background, a shadow flickered just out of view. When Lucy blinked, it had vanished. Brushing it off as a trick of the light, she couldn't shake off the gnawing feeling in her stomach. What was happening? Why was everyone so captivated yet scared? Determined to find out more, she decided to call her grandmother. When she asked if Granny had noticed anything strange in the background of her video, her grandmother's voice trembled as she responded, admitting that she thought it was just a glitch. Granny's admission of feeling off since starting the videos sent a chill down Lucy's spine. The next day, Lucy drove to her grandmother's house, her heart racing. As she parked in the driveway, she noticed the once vibrant flowers in Granny's garden looked wilted, and a thick layer of dust coated the porch. Something was amiss. Calling out for her grandmother, she was met with an eerie silence. The walls of the house seemed to watch her as she ventured further inside. Granny was in her favorite armchair, her hands trembling as she clutched the fabric. Lucy felt an unsettling chill run down her spine as Granny handed her the phone, visibly shaken. On the screen was another TikTok video. This one was different. Granny sat in the same chair, her eyes unfocused, and behind her, the shadow loomed larger, its outline unmistakable. It felt like the figure was alive, breathing and waiting for something. Lucy's heart raced. She immediately began scrolling through the comments again. This time, the words were even more alarming. Users were warning Granny, saying things like, "She's not alone anymore and the shadow is getting closer." Panic set in as Lucy insisted they delete the TikTok app. But Granny shook her head, tears filling her eyes. She explained that it was too late. She could feel something watching her, something that wanted to be seen. That night, the wind howled outside as Lucy made the decision to stay over at Granny's, determined to protect her. They set out to delete the app, hoping to rid the house of whatever had slipped through. Just as they were about to hit delete, the phone buzzed, revealing a new notification: live video, Granny's adventure. Lucy's heart raced in disbelief. Had Granny accidentally scheduled a live stream? The fear in her grandmother's eyes confirmed her worst fears. The live stream started automatically, and Granny's terrified face filled the screen. The chat exploded with comments warning her not to turn around. A shiver ran down Lucy's spine as the shadow flickered behind her grandmother, tall and ominous. Granny's expression shifted from confusion to pure terror as she remained frozen, unable to move. Lucy, desperate, shouted for her grandmother to close her eyes, but it was too late. The screen filled with static before going black, plunging the room into an eerie silence. Lucy shook Granny, urging her to snap out of it, but all her grandmother could do was gasp, clutching Lucy's arm as if to ground herself. They needed to turn off the stream. The shadow seemed to have a malevolent hold on her. Lucy scrambled to shut off the phone, but it was too late. The figure had materialized from the shadows, its faceless head tilting as if to observe them. In a moment of sheer panic, Granny shouted that it couldn't have her, summoning a courage Lucy didn't know she possessed. The figure recoiled, its shadowy form writhing in response. Lucy felt a surge of hope as they faced the dark entity together, but it was a fleeting moment. The room filled with a chilling silence, broken only by the sound of Lucy's pounding heart. Granny blinked, breaking free from the trance, gasping as she regained her strength. Together they fled toward the door, but the figure reached out, its claw-like hand inching closer. Lucy felt terror grip her as she shouted for Granny to keep moving, but the figure loomed closer and closer. In a desperate attempt to break the hold of the entity, Lucy remembered the tales of spirits drawn to fear and attention. They had to fight back. As they burst out of the house, the cold night air hit them like a wave of relief. They didn't stop running until they reached Lucy's car. As they sped away, Lucy glanced in the rearview mirror, her breath catching in her throat. The house loomed behind them, dark and menacing, but the figure was gone. Relief flooded her senses, but it was short-lived. Granny's voice broke the silence, filled with dread as she confessed to feeling the entity inside her. Panic surged through Lucy as she processed the weight of her grandmother's revelation. Suddenly, the phone buzzed again, and Lucy's heart sank at the sight of a new notification. New video uploaded. Granny's TikTok terror. Granny gasped, her face pale as realization hit. The entity was still trying to connect with her. Before Lucy could respond, the phone rang, vibrating violently in her hands. The screen lit up, displaying Granny's TikTok profile. In a chilling moment, a familiar voice echoed from the speaker, chilling Lucy to her core. It proclaimed that it had been waiting for Granny. The call ended abruptly, plunging the car into a suffocating silence. Lucy turned to her grandmother, terror-stricken, feeling the weight of the night pressing down on them. They knew the nightmare was far from over. The figure had found its way into their lives, and they had to face it together. The next morning, Lucy decided to research the phenomenon of haunted social media accounts. She spent hours diving deep into the internet, discovering tales of others who had faced similar situations. Reports surfaced of an ancient entity that thrived on attention and fear, using platforms like TikTok as a conduit to break into the physical world. It was said that once it established a connection, it would manipulate reality to feed off its victims' emotions. Lucy shivered at the implications of what she found. The entity was likely feeding off Granny's vulnerability and the attention she garnered on TikTok. Lucy realized they needed to sever that connection for good. She discussed her findings with Granny, who felt a mix of fear and determination. They agreed to perform a cleansing ritual to rid the house of the entity once and for all. That evening, they gathered candles, sage and salt from the kitchen, preparing for the ritual. As they lit the candles, the flames flickered ominously, casting long shadows across the room. Granny recited an ancient chant she remembered from her youth, her voice trembling but steady. Lucy followed suit, adding her own words of strength and protection. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped, and the lights flickered ominously. The shadow manifested before them, twisting and writhing, its form more grotesque than ever. Granny's voice faltered as fear washed over her, but Lucy took her hand, urging her to continue. They had to stand strong together. As they spoke the incantation louder, the figure seemed to pulse, its shadowy tendrils reaching out, desperately trying to break their bond. But Lucy and Granny pushed through, their voices uniting in strength. With one final cry, they shouted for the entity to leave. In an instant, the shadow shrieked, a sound that reverberated through the walls, shaking the very foundation of the house. The air thickened with tension, and the candles flickered wildly. But just as it seemed the entity would overpower them, a blinding light enveloped the room. The figure dissipated, shrieking in agony, its form unraveling into the ether. The room fell silent as the light faded, leaving Lucy and Granny breathless, but relieved. They had done it, they had faced the terror and come out victorious. In the following days, Lucy and Granny cleaned out the house, discarding everything that reminded them of the TikTok videos. They vowed never to return to social media in the same way again, cherishing their connection in a world where technology often drew them apart. As they sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the garden, Lucy felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She realized that the bond they shared was stronger than any dark force, and together they could conquer anything. But as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, Lucy's phone buzzed again, displaying a notification from TikTok. The app was still there, and as she opened it, her heart dropped. A new video appeared, Granny's TikTok terror, revealing a hauntingly familiar shadow lurking in the corner, just waiting for its next victim. Sometimes the shadows we see on screen are only the beginning of a more terrifying reality. Lucy and Granny had faced their fears, but as they learned, some darkness can never truly be extinguished. In the world of social media, the boundaries between reality and horror are blurred, leaving us to wonder what lurks behind our screens. Will you dare to find out?